has always been an important, how do I say, item in Avengers Infinity War. It has been teased towards us exactly as to what was coming within 10 years after the Space Stone and the Mind Stone was introduced at some point in the beginning and the end of Phase 1. Since then, we got introduced to the Reality Stone, then the Time Stone, and the Power Stone throughout Phase 3, 2, and 3. After that, it was very important that they had to reveal this Soul Stone, and they revealed it in Avengers Infinity War. After this, Thanos was able to collect all the Infinity Stones and was able to wipe out half of the population. Everyone should have known what exactly happened since it's been a whole year since that movie was out. But anyway, after this, the Avengers was able to use the quantum realm to travel back in time, get the stones right at the time they were on the planet that they resided on, and then bring them back to the timeline. I'm not exactly sure how did this prevent anything, since time doesn't work that way in the MCU. It's more like an alternate reality type of thing for the quantum realm. So yeah. But after Hulk uses it and told us that it gives off gamma radiation, and gamma radiation makes Hulk, or rather instead, Professor Hulk stronger. By putting it on, he was pretty much absorbing all the energy that was coming out from him. And after he snapped it, his entire suit and his skin burned up, and he was unable to use that arm. He was still able to use it in the final battle, and after Tony used it, he died. So let's try to analyze the one question here. How does Tony Stark's Gauntlet injures and kills anyone who uses it? Well, first, let's talk about something from the Infinity Gauntlet. Now, in the Infinity Gauntlet, it was pretty much the villain's weapon throughout the entirety of Infinity War. One by one throughout the story, it's always been two stones from the first act, and at the beginning of the second act, it was the Reality Stone and then the Soul Stone, and then at the beginning of the last act, it was the Time Stone, then the Mind Stone. And after Thanos uses it to snap half the population, well, there was a price to be made. For one, his entire arm was burned up and shriveled, as if the power of the stones were like too powerful. Now let's analyze exactly as to the metal that was used to create the Infinity Gauntlet. It was made out of Uru, and it actually doesn't only holds magical energy from the universe, but it also absorbs it. So you can't really destroy the gauntlet unless you're as strong as Hela, but that's not really the point here. It is known that the Uru metal can in fact absorb the energy, which explains why Thanos is actually able to grab the Power Stone without, well, breaking to death. That, and because his skin is in fact powerful, and Uru is the only metal that is able to cut through his skin. Well, it was unproven until I think the Morris sword is made out of Uru. But anyway, let's stay with me on this. So if he was able to grab the Power Stone, nothing wouldn't really happen to him. And after he puts the gauntlet back on, the effects of the Power Stone would actually be undone. So it is known that the Uru metal cannot break after using the Infinity Stones, which is why it didn't break when he got all the stones. But after he snapped his fingers, it pretty much encased his entire arm, which explains why he couldn't take it off after he used the stones to destroy the stones. And after that, that was the last we saw of the stones forever. But until Stark's Gauntlet came back into the mix. So pretty much, this is now the important item that the Avengers have to keep away from Thanos in the final acts. So Hawkeye has it and runs across the battlefield to bring it back to the quantum tunnel. Then T'Challa grabs it and pretty much uses kinetic energy as a weapon to get through the battlefield. But then he fights Emily Maw, and then he gives it to Spider-Man, and then he gives it to Valkyrie, then he gives it to Captain Marvel. Captain Marvel almost succeeds, but then Thanos' sword destroys it. Then he gets the Infinity Gauntlet, and then he, well, almost won, but then Tony uses it, without using the Gauntlet, and uses his nanotech to snap everyone who has ever worked for Thanos out of existence. Unless you were good or something. Because we don't really know what happened to Gamora since she went missing. Maybe she went back to her time. I don't know. Anyway, so why does the Infinity Gauntlet from Infinity War does in fact work, but the Stark Gauntlet doesn't in fact work? Well, Tony Stark's metal, the metal that he used to make the gauntlet, is actually made out of nanotech, and compared to the Uru metal, well, let's just say that compared to these two, the Infinity Gauntlet is stronger, because you guys know what it's made out of. I don't really need to go through that again. But anyway, the reason why Tony died and Hulk got injured is because they used the weakest metal, or at least one of the classic metals on Earth. They didn't exactly use vibranium, which is the strongest metal on Earth, to make this gauntlet. They used nanotech, which I don't really know what that type of metal alloy is made out of, but I do know that it's is the right amount as strong as any metal that is existent. So yes, the Infinity Stones weren't able to break the gauntlet, but it was able to break the person who wore the gauntlet, which explains Hulk not able to use his arm again because it was confirmed by the Russo brothers that Hulk's injuries is in fact permanent. So we won't see him use Hulk smashing ever again, but I still have hope. So the reason why Tony died is because of two reasons. One, he's a human, and he used the most magical elemental crystals in the universe. So yeah, that was kind of obvious. And for two, it was very obvious that however hard he tried, yes, what he snapped for out of existence did happen, but I do believe that all that power destroyed anything that was keeping him alive, including the arc reactor, which explains why he wasn't able to survive after the snap. But with that out of the way, that's all I say. Thank you so much for watching. This is why Tony Stark and Hulk was able and unable to survive the snap after using the nanotech gauntlet, and why the Infinity Gauntlet is in fact stronger than the Stark Gauntlet. Might need to find a shorter title for that. But anyway, that's all I have to say. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like the video, share to your friends and family, hit subscribe for more great content, let me know in the comments below what you guys thought of the video itself, and what I should cover next for Avengers Endgame. Thank you guys so much for watching. Goodbye.